All right, let's take a look at number 10. So the first thing we've got to do is we got to find the domains of f and g. So for f, it is a square root. And remember, we can't square root negatives. So x minus 8 has to be 0 or higher. So it has to be greater than or equal to 0. So we're going to go ahead and add 8 to both sides to isolate the x or get the x by itself. So we have x is greater than or equal to 8. So on a number line, here's our 8. Greater than would mean to the right. And because it has the or equal to, it has the line underneath, we're going to put a square bracket. So the answer to this is bracket 8 all the way to infinity. Let's go ahead and do the same thing, but this time for find g's domain. So it's the same thing. It's a square root. So the stuff underneath the square root, the x plus 8, has to be greater than or equal to 0. We cannot square root negative, so make sure it's 0 or higher. Since it's a plus 8, we're going to do a minus 8 to both sides to cancel it out. So we get x is greater than or equal to negative 8. So on a number line, here's my negative 8. Greater than would mean to the right, or equal to means square bracket. So this one is going to be square bracket, negative 8, all the way to infinity. So now we're looking to answer all the others, basically, well, not all, but f plus g, f minus g, and f times g, all right? And it'll also help us get f divided by g, g divided by f. We have to find the intersection of the two we just found. So in other words, here's f, and it's at 8. Here's g, it's at negative 8, which I'll put over here. Negative 8 would be here, right? The intersection means where we've been double shaded, right? So for both, in other words, you've shaded it on both f and g. Well, this region right here is not double shaded. It's only shaded on g. But this region right here is shaded on both. So we're going to say from 8 all the way to infinity is going to be our intersection, which is the answer for all of these up here. If you look at that theorem in our class, it said f plus, f minus, and f times is the intersection of f and g. And f divided by g or g divided by f is also the intersection, but exclude any values that make the denominator 0. So let's go put these in and see if they're right before we move on. We said it was bracket 8 to infinity. I'm going to copy that real fast. So I got to type it a bunch of times. Okay. All right, so the next one is f with itself. And we said anytime that you are multiplying a function by itself, whatever the original function's domain is, that's going to be your answer. Just to kind of reiterate, f multiplied by itself, if you had f, which goes from 8 to infinity, intersected with f again, from 8 to infinity, then where you would be double shaded would be 8 to infinity. So whenever a function is adding, subtracting, multiplying with itself, it's just going to be whatever that function's domain is. So it's going to be 8 to infinity for that one. All right. So now we're getting into the divide. So for the divide, f divided by g, right? Well, that one has g in the denominator. So we know it's going to be the intersection that we got right here. So it's going to be square bracket 8 to infinity, okay? But we have to figure out what's going to make the denominator equal 0. So you can probably just see what's going to make it 0 if you come up here and you look at g. Negative 8 plus 8 would be 0. So -8 has to be excluded. -8, exclude -8. Okay. Well, -8 is over here. So it's already been excluded. So it's not going to change the bracket 8 to infinity. Now, if we look at the other way around, g divided by f, well, now I have to look when f is going to be 0. Sorry, I keep putting equals. Well, if I look over here at the top of the screen, square root x minus 8, well, 8 minus 8 would be 0. So we have to exclude 8 this time. Okay, so instead of putting a square bracket on the 8, we're going to put a parentheses on the 8, and we're going to head off to infinity. Okay, so let's go put those in. So the first one is square bracket 8 to infinity. And the next one is going to be parentheses 8 to infinity. All right. So that takes care of all those really tough, or not tough, but time-consuming, right? Time-consuming domain questions. Let's go in and actually find the functions now. Let's make it a little bigger. So we got to do f plus, f minus, f times. Okay. So for part B, f plus g of x. Remember, the x goes with both. So that means f of x plus g of x. So we're going to take f, and then we're going to put a plus sign between it and g. And that's it for that one. Now for f minus g of x, it's almost identical. The x still goes with both. But instead of there being a plus sign between them, well, there's just going to be a minus sign between them. Let's take a look at f times g of x. So we have to take the square root. Sorry, you guys. We have to take the square root of x minus 8, and we have to multiply it by the square root of x plus 8. So since they're both in a radical, you actually can multiply them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take x minus 8, and we're going to multiply it by x plus 8. Let me go check and see what the directions say on this, if they want us to simplify. It looks like they do. See how it says simplify your answer? So I have a sneaking suspicion they might not allow that, you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and FOIL. So we're going to go x squared positive 8x, negative 8x, and negative 64. And then those middle ones will cancel out because they're opposites of each other. So it's just going to be the square root of x squared minus 64. All right, let's go put these guys in. Make sure you get out of the radical. Sometimes I see students staying in the radical and they're like, why is it marking me out? So you got to make sure you hit that right arrow to get out of the radical. All right, let's try the next one. Same thing, but with a minus. So square root x minus 8, right arrow, minus square root x plus 8. Right? And then what we just got for the times was x squared minus 64 underneath the root. Awesome. Okay, so now we got to look at f with itself. So f with itself, multiplied by itself. So we have to take f of x and multiply it by f of x. So that's going to be the square root of x minus 8 times the square root of x minus 8. Now, another way to write this is x minus 8 has to multiply by x minus 8, right? Just like on the last one. Well, another way to write that is x minus 8 squared. So why I want to write it like that is because a square and a square root undo each other. So we would just have x minus 8. We don't have to do all the math like we did on the last problem. So just the x minus 8 will survive on that one. All right, now the divides. just to keep it on the screen. There we go. Okay, so we're going to take f divided by g. So f of x has to be on top of g of x. So the square root of x minus 8 is on top of the square root of x plus 8. Let's see if it lets us leave that. Before I start diving into rationalizing the denominator and stuff, let's see if it takes that. It did, okay. So we'll save that for trig, for rationalizing the denominator. All right, so now just flip it, because now it wants g divided by f. So you can take the answer you just got and flip it. So the x plus 8 will be on top of the x minus 8. Done. All right. Okay, so hopefully, especially this tricky domain part, hopefully after 2 questions under your belt now, maybe it's starting to make a little bit more sense. All right, thanks for joining me, you guys. Good luck on this number 10.